It's a great day to talk hockey on HabsCast.
Welcome to HabsCast. I'm your host, Eric Macramalla, with Grant McCagg, former scout for the Montreal Canadiens. We are doing, Grant, a live version of HabsCast because some very big news just came down. The Montreal Canadiens have extended Lane Hutson for 8 years at $70.8 million. That works out to an average annual value, or as the kids like to refer to it as an AAV, of $8.85 million. Of that $70.8 million, Grant, most of that is by way of signing bonuses, $55 million in signing bonuses. There's a very good reason for that. I know we always say, hey, players are okay to sign in Canada because they get paid in US dollars, but this again signals that they're looking for some significant tax relief, and Lane Hutson has that. Before we get into the weeds of it, the details, is Lane Hutson, is he underpaid? Did he leave money on the table? What does this mean for guys like Nick Suzuki now making over $1 million less than Lane Hutson? Grant McCagg, when you heard about the signing, what was your initial reaction?
It was. I was just. I was surprised, to be honest with you. I wasn't. I wasn't expecting to see him signed. I. Typically, players are signed before the season gets started, and when they're not, often they say, "Well, we're not going to. We're going to wait till next year." But I guess when they brought in the big guns, right, from Cortex, and it was apparent that, okay, yes, the season's already started, but we really want to get this done now and not wait till next summer. But certainly, initially there was a lot of. I don't think that the Hutson camp was too happy with the initial offer, and I don't believe they talked for quite a while after that. But then things got rolling again, and I'm really happy that they were able to hash this out, because you don't want that. I think it may have affected Laine a bit, and I really think that he wanted a deal done. Everyone wanted a deal done, and just happy that they were able to come to an agreement.
Grant, I often hear, sometimes contract negotiations can affect a player. And I think in some instances it does. It does if those contract negotiations are acrimonious or if they're bitter. But here, we were 3 games into the season. Lane Hutson hasn't looked fantastic. He's still been looked dynamic. He's looked elusive. It's only 3 games. I still think he's played okay. I don't know if it's affecting him that much, but I do know now that by virtue of this deal, he is affected, and he's affected in a positive way. I mentioned the deal. So his base salary for the first 7 years is $1 million, $1 million, $1 million, $1 million, $1.2 million, $1.2 million, and $2.2 million. Last year, it's just the base is the entire amount of the contract, $7.2 million. So that means there's $55 million in bonus money. So how does his contract stack up to the comparables? Because that's the first question. Did Lane Hutson leave money on the table, right? That's the first question you want to ask. And I think the answer to that, Grant, is probably, he left some money on the table. Kent Hughes did a good job. You mentioned that Lane Hutson's agency is Cortex. That's where Kent Hughes used to work. And that's where Peter McTavish, a former assistant manager, general manager of the Ottawa Senators, he moved into Cortex after Kent Hughes lost. He's a friend of my wife's. They worked together a long time ago at Canada Post as in-house counsel. When I look at the comparable, so Lane Hutson, AAV of $8.5 million, starts next year. That represents 8.51% of the cap next season when the cap goes up to $104 million. His comparables, and get your views on this if you agree. I looked into it. To me, there are 4 obvious comparables on D: Jake Sanderson, Luke Hughes, Brock Faber, and Jackson Lacombe. The one outlier is Luke Hughes. He was an RFA this season. So his deal is 7 years, $63 million AAV of $9 million. But I think the Devils had to pay a bit extra because they only extended him now, right? So you look at Jake Sanderson. He signed his deal in 2023, AAV of $8.05 million. So about an AAV of $8 million, signed in 2023, 2 years ago. And Brock Faber signed it this offseason. His AAV is $8.5 million, $68 million deal over 8 years. And Jackson Lacombe, AAV of $9 million, $72 million deal over 8 years. So I look at these numbers, Grant, and I look at Lane Hutson's AAV of $8.85 million. He is a far more dynamic player than the players I just mentioned. Jake Sanderson is a fantastic defenseman, but Lane Hutson is unique. He's a bit of a unicorn. I mean, we talked about this early on at HabsCast, that Lane Hutson, to me, if I had to point out one player that was responsible for the Canadiens making the playoffs, or primarily responsible, of all the players on the Canadiens last year, I go with Lane Hutson, because he simply elevated the offensive game to a level that we haven't seen before. So his AAV of $8.85 million, it compares okay to Jake Sanderson. He signed it 2 years ago at $8 million. Luke Hughes at $9 million. Again, there's a premium to be paid for extending someone in his RFA year. And Brock Faber, $8.5 million. Brock Faber is what? It's a two-way defenseman, a defensive-minded defenseman with tremendous shutdown ability. So I'm looking at these numbers here, and my initial reaction, Grant, crunching the numbers, distilling it down, Lane Hutson at an AAV of $8.85 million over 8 years is a bit of an underpay. I think around $9 to $9.15 million would have made more sense, particularly as the contract ages. In about 3 or 4 years, the 8.85 AAV will look more like 6.5 to 6.9 AAV. Curious as to your thoughts. We look at the comparables: Jake Sanderson, Luke Hughes, Brock Faber, Lacombe, and their AAVs, and where Lane Hutson landed. What's your sense as to is he slightly underpaid? Is he overpaid? Is it just right?
Yeah, I believe it's when you compare him, especially to Lacombe, I think, like certainly compared to Lacombe's contract, I think Hudson's a better defenseman, and Lacombe got more money. Jake Sanderson's such a good two-way defenseman. Mm-hmm. It's hard to compare them as defensemen. I think they're different players. But I don't know that any of those guys will get the point totals that Laine will get. I think he's the best offensive defenseman out of that group. And typically, points matter when it comes to to deals, right? If you are one of the top 3 or 4 point getters on defense in the league, you get paid. And like down the road, if he ends up being a point per game defenseman, and in 4 years' time, I don't know, I mean, we're speculating on what the cap will be, but I think the thought is it's going to be above 120 million, the cap in 4 years. He's making he's making well under 10% of Montreal's cap hit. And if he's a point per game defenseman, when you look at it in those terms, certainly just from a club standpoint, I think 3 or 4 years time, we're going to be looking at this deal as being quite reasonable. Like Brady Tkachuk, he'll be, do you know when his contract's up, Eric, offhand?
I don't know.
Okay. I think it's probably
5 years around that.
4 or 5 years, right? What's he going to be signing for? The Sens made a bunch of 7-8 year deals 3 or 4 years ago. Look at these guys when their contracts come up, right? The Canadiens will still have Hudson, Dobson, Salaf. A few of their big names will still have several years left in their contract. But I bet you at that point, Brady Tkachuk might be signing for 15 million, 12 to 15 million a year. And when you look at the contracts, you'll be saying, oh, Montreal's in really good shape here.
They are. So, you make a good point that, you get paid, especially on D, you get paid if you tally points. I mean, it's really hard to find defensemen that contribute offensively like Lane Hutson did last year, really at an historically great pace. Look at Brock Faber, AAV of $8.5 million. Last season, 82 games, he had 29 points. Lacombe last season, 75 games, 43 points. So he had over 20 fewer points, Lane Hutson. His AAV over the next 8 years is $9 million. It's $9 million. Hudson's at 8.85. So there's no doubt that Kent Hughes was able to convince Lane Hutson to take a modest haircut on the deal, because I don't think anybody who knows hockey is going to say that Lacombe is more valuable than Lane Hutson as a whole. Lacombe he's reliable in his own end. He's a bigger body. We know that. Lane Hutson is not that. But Lane Hutson offers something that very few defensemen in the league have, and that is being dynamic. Luke Hughes, last year, 44 points in 71 games. His AAV is $9 million. So to me, $9 million was the standard set this offseason. And Lane Hutson comes in at 8.85. So I do think he took a bit of a haircut. Now, I mentioned the signing bonuses. This is really important, right? So of the $70.8 million deal, dollars he's going to be getting, $55 million is by way of signing bonuses. The reason that's important is if we assume that Lane Hutson is a resident of Michigan, then he's taking advantage of Canadian tax laws that favor U.S. players signing in Canada. So the way it works is when you are a U.S. resident, so again, I assume, because I know he was born in Michigan, so let's assume he is a resident of Michigan. The way it works is, as a U.S. player, when you sign a contract with signing bonuses, those signing bonuses are only taxed at 15% in Canada. And then you go back to your home state and you pay the balance owing in your home state. So let's break it down like this. Lane Hutson pays 15% in Quebec. And then he goes back to his off the bonuses, $55 million. And then he goes back to Michigan and pays what's owed in Michigan. And the way it works in Michigan is you have a 37% federal tax rate and about a 4.25 flat income tax rate. So about 42%. So it drops from 54% to 42% on that $55 million. So for Lane Hutson, what that means is he is saving $6.5 million over the 8-year deal.
Okay.
I don't know about you, but nearly $7 million is a lot of money. And on top of that, no one talks about this, but on top of that, when you do your U.S. tax return, because I do U.S. tax returns, I've got some properties in Vegas. When you do those tax returns, you can deduct a lot more. You know, it's the U.S., I've always found, just fundamentally and philosophically, is far more entrepreneurial. And I think you probably would agree with that. And part of being really entrepreneurial is that you allow people to keep more of the money that is sort of aligned with their effort, you know? So that $55 million is huge. So I know Gary Bettman has said taxes don't matter. They don't matter. They matter less, I think, if you're a resident of the U.S. playing in Canada.
Right.
But to suggest, Grant, for a second that it's not something that is seriously considered by athletes is simply, in my opinion, disingenuous. Because when the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Florida Panthers pitch for a free agent, page 1 of their brochure, I've seen it, is taxes, taxes, taxes. So this is a typical type of contract. Now, why it's really important that Lane Hutson signed this deal this season and not after July of next year is he now saves about $2 million. The reason is the next CBA, when it kicks in, is going to cap signing bonuses at 60% of your deal. So because I'm lonely, I have nothing to do, I did the math on that. And what that means is, had he signed that deal next year with $55 million in signing bonuses, he would have saved about $4.8 to $4.9 million on his 8-year deal, rather than $6.5 to $7 million.
Interesting.
That's significant. Like, people say, oh, it's $70 million. It's not a lot. It's a lot. I'm sorry. These athletes know one thing: finite careers, finite earning potential. You've got to save as much as you can. The most important person in an athlete's life, and I have a friend who's an agent, says it's the same thing. It's not the agent. It's not the coaches. It's not Marty St. Louis. It's the player's financial planner. Because once they're done playing at 35, 37, Mark Recchi, 72 years old, whatever it is, now you've got to plan for the rest of your life. Yes, $80 million is a lot of money. Is it institutional wealth? No, but it's a significant amount of money. I'm curious as to your view on this, Grant. You've been around for a long time. When you see all these deals at $70, $80 million, what's your not your logical reaction, but your gut reaction? I'm curious. You just go like, oh, man, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, well, I look at the owner, though, too, you know.
Mhm.
It's at the end of the day, it's coming from the guy that owns the team, and I know that the owner, Jeff Molson, has a few bucks in the till. So
A
you
few.
know, I yeah, I mean,
I
uh,
always wonder after he signs a deal, like they split a case of beer sitting on the Bell Center steps.
yeah. I mean, it's the market, right? I mean, I wish, my gut reaction is, geez, I wish I'd have stayed off the pops and when I was 16, 17 and worked a little harder but no, realistically, I knew I wasn't never going to be a pro hockey player. I found that out when I faced off against Steve Eisenman, as I mentioned in a previous episode on here. But yes, it's just the way I look at baseball and I look at basketball, and you know you have to kind of compare it to those guys, and it's still way below, right? So yeah, it's a pile of money, but the money's there, so good.
It is there. The one thing I'll say, and I'm not, look, I am someone who has been doing these types of shows for 15 years, and I write about the stuff, the business and law of sports at Forbes. I understand the CBA. I understand the salary cap. I understand supply and demand, and I understand fair market value. Just there's a little part of little Egyptian Eric that when he hears that a guy who's played in the league for 1 year is
Yeah,
getting $70 million, I just go, oh, okay. I get it. But
yeah, I
deep
know.
down, the old part of me that has worked and worked my butt off to try and get as far as I can, like you have, I go, oh, geez, that's a lot of money for one season.
Yeah,
Your
well,
thoughts?
it helps when you win Rookie of the Year, I guess.
Yes, and when you have the most assists of any
Y-
current defenseman in
Yeah,
the league in your rookie season,
yeah. I
passing
mean,
Hughes, Sider, Faber, McCarr, and Hughes, those are pretty good names.
right. And the way his contract was, it wasn't a 3-year ELC for him, right?
Hmm.
Which makes a difference as well.
Yeah.
And due to circumstances, unique circumstances, yes, after 1 year, that's like I can't think of too many players that got a deal like that after 1 year in the NHL. But there are unique circumstances. He's a unique talent. Um, Montreal is lucky to have him for 8 years. I think he's going to more than earn that contract and make Molson tens of millions of dollars on top of what he'll be paying him.
Absolutely. That is Grant McCagg, former scout for the Montreal Canadiens. I'm Eric Macramalla, and this is HabsCast, all things Montreal Canadiens. Okay, so we've talked about first big issue is to leave money on the table, and it seems as though, yes, he left some money on the table. 9.25 would have made more sense for him over an 8-year deal. So he took a bit of a haircut. That's important insofar as roster construction. So look at roster construction. Look at the Montreal Canadiens, their top players. So Lane Hutson next year with a salary cap of 104 million, his cap hit is 8.51% of the cap. That compares to Cole Caulfield at 7.6%, Nick Suzuki at 7.6%, Slavkovsky at 7.3%, Dobson at 9.1%, Gooley at 5.3%, and now, as I mentioned, Lane Hutson 8.51%. So next season, Lane Hutson's contract will have the second highest cap percentage hit at 8.51% after Noah Dobson. You can't pay someone, a single player, like the CBA provides, you can't go higher than 20% on any player as far as the cap hit goes. But really, anything above 14%, it's very tough to win because you have finite dollars in the cap world. You can only allocate so much money to the players, which is why Connor McDavid did what he did. And in the process, made a lot of players look awfully, awfully selfish. #Kaprizov. So I look at the percentage cap hit, 8.51 for Lane Hutson. It makes good sense to me, given when he signed, how the cap is going up. And in about 3 to 4 years, that number will come down to around 6.8 to 7%.
Right.
So that's a good deal. With the cap going up, his cap percentage hit will be somewhere around 6.8 to 7%. Grant, I like that number insofar as roster construction. What is your reaction?
Yeah. Well, I look back at the Leafs, a couple of years ago when they had they had 4 or 5 guys making well over 50%, or at least 50% of their roster cap, their cap, and these 6 in a couple of years, when you look at it, it'll be well under 50%, right? For the 6 guys that you mentioned. So, when you compare it to the Leafs, just for one example, like they had Marner, Tavares, Matthews were all well over 10% of their cap hit, just those 3 alone. I like that. We know that the cap's going up significantly over the next 3-4 years, and that had to be part of why salaries have gone up so much since the summer when Hughes and then Kaprizov, obviously. After Kaprizov signed, and after sensing that the Canadiens kind of gave a low offer to Hutson to begin with, which happens. I mean, it's contract negotiations, but I thought it was going to cost them $10 million. Honestly, I thought that it would be eight around 10, between 9.5 and 10.5 somewhere would be the cost annually, and I was surprised it was under 9,000 or 9 million per year, just because of those factors. Maybe do we give a shout out to McDavid for? Like, did that help? Well, when you see, okay, well,
I don't think so. I don't think so, Grant. I think the McDavid contract, I think it's a great point. I think it stands as an outlier because it's clearly distinguishable from other contracts. But it certainly will give players pause.
Sorry. And Kaprizov in the other, conversely, Kaprizov's is an outlier too, right?
Agreed. And he is an outlier. And I guess when you're looking at Lane Hutson, you're probably looking at comparables on the blue line, right? And the guys I mentioned before, Lacombe and Faber and Hughes and Sanderson, those are the comparables. And I mentioned that you're gonna have the Montreal Canadiens core is now obviously forming. It's clear what it is today. Caulfield, Suzuki, Slafkovsky, Dobson, Gouli, Hutson, Demidov, Hage when he comes. But right now, those are your key players. And the ultimate question is, are they signed to deals that make it possible for Corton and Hughes to continue to improve the roster, make the team better without having to lose players? Because that's the real consideration. Right? Can you continue to sign players at $8 and $7 million and $9 million in the case of Dobson, and have enough cap room to improve the team? And when I looked at this, I thought of the 2021 Tampa Bay Lightning. This is back in 2021. All right, you had Vasilevsky at a cap hit of 9.5, Kucherov 9.5, Stamkos 8.5, Hedman 7.875, McDonough 6.75, Braden Point 6.75. Those are significant dollars allocated to players back in 2021. And what did they do as a team? They figured out, we're going to dedicate most of our money to our core group of players, and then rotate, and then just sign the supporting cast members and create our own middle to lower class on our team. So I look at the Montreal Canadiens now, and this is going to be a similar model. I think that you're paying your core players a lot of money. It's no secret. That's how you win. But it's not 2 or 3 players. It's got to be 6 or 7 players. They're going to pay those players, and then they're going to cycle through. So you're looking at the coming, who on the Montreal Canadiens is going to be the Canadiens are going to have to sign. So next year, Bolduc is an RFA. Matheson is a UFA. Those are 2 players I think that you want to sign. Right. I know people hate on Matheson, eats up a lot of minutes, great skater. He's looked really good this season, only 3 games. Of course, it's walk year, but he's someone that the Canadiens are better with if they can afford to keep him on the team. But Gallagher at 6.5 or 6.25, I forget what it is, and Anderson at 5.5, their deals come due in 2 years or in a year after next season. Those are players you move out because they're your, quote, 3rd and 4th line players, and you can't win You can't sustain success long term to win a cup if you're paying third and fourth line players a combination of $12 million. Your thoughts, Grant?
Yeah. Well, I look at Tampa. Yes, that was their model, and but then they, Tanner Geno, and they pay him what they did, and I think they made a couple of mistakes after that, signing
But
guys.
I mean, in those few years, they paid a small number of players a lot of money, and they won cups.
Yeah, it was a pretty significant cap hit, and I think it just had happened to be that I mean, that's a special group, right? And they were in their primes, and they won a couple cups. I don't know that it's because it was fantastic. I don't know that it was financially. I would put much emphasis on it being a brilliant financially model, but it worked, and I think it's because of the players just being so good. I mean, it can make your financier look pretty smart, right? If they you've got a Vasilevsky standing on his head in nets, and
well, you know what? Here,
you can circumvent the cap. You can circumvent the cap with 11 million extra in salary when the guy miraculously comes back for game one of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and they were lucky, I think, to win. It wasn't
at the same. So I mentioned the cap hits, right? They're all about between 8.5% and 7.5. That year, the 2021-22 Lightning, Vasilevsky at 9.5 million was 11.6%. Kucherov 11.6, Stamkos 10.4, Hedman 9.6. So that was a lot of money to allocate to those players, but it worked. But here's my ultimate billion-dollar question for Grant McCagg, former scout for the Montreal Canadiens. This is the question: the salaries for Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky, I've never been too hot on, but reasonable. Hutson, those are reasonable salaries. But here's my question: Lane Hutson, Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, Dobson, Gooley, Slavkovsky. Have the Canadiens, have they picked the right players to be their core? That's the billion-dollar question, Grant. What say you? Because that's the question. It's a small team still, a little bit in some instances. That's why they signed Slav to the contract that you aren't crazy about, but darn well, Eric, that a first overall pick, right? He gets extra dollars early on, even if he hasn't necessarily earned it yet, right? That was a factor in why they had to pay Slav. Okay, but tell me now, Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky, Dobson, Gooley, Hutson,
right?
Demidov, maybe Hage. Does this core, can it win a cup?
Yeah,
that's the billion-dollar question, right?
I find it
contracts make sense.
Yeah, well,
the players make sense.
A lot of hope for Hage, but we'll see. I wouldn't put him in that. There's a lot of let's wait and see on Hage, but I mean, sure, and especially when I think they're all going to be, for the life of their contract. Are any of them over 10% of the? No, right?
No, the highest one now, according to my math, is Noah Dobson next season at 9.1%. So that's why I gave you the Tampa Bay Lightning comparables from 2021. No one is close to 10. But I guess my question is, the percentages make sense for those individual players. Are those the right players to win a cup?
Well, I mean, I don't really like making predictions like that, Eric. I'll say yes, I think so. The fact that what I think they have going in their favor, even above and beyond Tampa, is the fact that they have so many good under 22 players in the system that they stocked up on draft picks over the past few years. And unlike Tampa, who invariably traded all of their first round picks and didn't really have a lot of young talent coming up that can be on ELCs to help buffer the high salaries for the core, right? Montreal over the next 5 years is going to be bringing in a Hage. You're going to be bringing in Fowler. They're going to be bringing in a bunch of guys that will help the team, will play significant roles, and be on entry-level contracts. So when you also factor that in, Eric, I think I'm not worried about any of the salaries of them all being under 10%. And when you compare it to Tampa is good. Them having all of these young players that are some of the best prospects outside of the NHL, unlike Tampa at the time, I think gives them an opportunity to sustain success for longer than Tampa did. Like Tampa won 2 cups, okay, they competed another year, but I think Tampa's run is over, and I think Montreal, while I don't know if they'll win a cup or not, but I think they will contend for a longer period of time than say Tampa Bay did.
I'll take it a step further. I'm fine making predictions. I think the Montreal Canadiens will be cup contenders. I love what you said about the low cap hits. Effectively, what it does is it reduces the margin of error, right? So the Canadiens next season, this is interesting. So next season, the players that are assigned are Suzuki, Caulfield, Slavkovsky, Gallagher, Anderson, Newhook, Evans, Demidov, Kapanen, right? That's your forward group. On D, Dobson, Gooley, Carrier, Hutson, obviously. Struble is signed. I know you love him, and Lane Hutson is signed. That's your core, and you'll still have more money to spend next year. So I think that's encouraging. What I do love about this group is what we've seen this season. We didn't see it last season. Out of the gate, extremely aggressive forecheck. You talk about F1, F2, F3. They're all over these, all over the opposing players. I mean, they drew 10 penalties against the Blackhawks. Let's not talk the power play because that will make me really sad because I don't know what Nick Suzuki's doing, where he's playing on the ice. But they drew 10 penalties because they were just all over the Blackhawks. Speed kills. Kent Hughes took over the team with Jeff Gordon. They said, we want to make this team fast. I think this season, it's come to fruition. Grant, when you watch the Montreal Canadiens, this team is fast.
Absolutely. And I think it all starts with, they traded for Carrier. They traded for Dobson. It all starts in the back end, the transition. They have when you compare it to 4 or 5 years ago when there was like Jordy Ben and Shea Weber, and I loved Shea, but he wasn't fast. You go on and compare the D-core speed today to what it was under Bergevin, and it's the one I think key change that they've made is, okay, we need a fast puck moving, puck carrying group of defensemen. Hutson obviously is adding those 3 guys that I just mentioned. It's just transformed the team. And then you add a Demidov, you add a Bolduc. Kapanen's a good skater. Compared to Dvorak, right? It's an upgrade on speed as well. It's just they've made a point of getting faster, and it's clear now. A team that at one point was bottom 10 in speed, I would say, is now maybe top 5, one of the top 5 quickest teams in the league.
Here's Grant McCagg, Eric Macramalla. I think you're bang on. And with the Lane Hutson signing, what it does now, the signing kind of crystallizes the path for this team and what the strategy is moving forward. And I mentioned that next season there are 2 players I think you might want to re-sign. There's Zach Bolduc. I think it's a no-brainer to re-sign him if you can do that. Just watching him play in short order, Grant, he's a player with high IQ on the ice. This is my non-scout opinion, so feel free to yell at me. High IQ on the ice, great anticipation, good hands down low, finds open lanes, plays somewhat fearlessly, finishes his checks. Can I be honest? I haven't seen a player for the Canadiens with that size, that skill, that level of anticipation down low in those hands in a long time. You watch Zach Bolduc play. Is he a player, if you're Ken Hughes, you say, yes, we have to re-sign you?
Oh, yeah. Well, you just traded for him, first round pick for a first round pick. And absolutely, he'll be, it'll be dependent, obviously, somewhat on how many goals he scores this year. I mean, he's on pace for 80, so you're gonna have to give him a nice deal if he scores anywhere near 40, right? And I think, with St. Louis, with Montgomery as coach, I think he scored all of his goals under Montgomery. So He's on a 45 goal pace in his last 40 games or something like that, which is crazy. If he scores 30 plus, that'll be the next. And with the cap going up every year, these contracts, it'll be an 8-year, $8 million contract for Bolduc. Could be the next. Next big one, I'd say.
I mean, is that something that Montreal Canadiens can afford? I suspect they didn't anticipate an AAV of $8 million when they got Bolduc. Probably thinking more in the range of 5.5 or 4.5 to 5.5.
If he scores 30 plus, it'll, I mean, Salaf never scored 30 plus, and he got. Right? I know it's the first overall pick syndrome and all that, but yeah, it depends on how many goals he scores this year. If he, at that young age, if he produces 35 goals, they'll have to offer him $7.5 million minimum. But as I said earlier, Eric, with all the ELCs coming in that will be coming in and the cap continuing to rise, there's room for another forward up at 8.5 or 8 or whatever it is, and then Demidov will be next after that, right? We'll see what he is offered when his contract's up. That'll be interesting as well, and dependent somewhat on how much he produces over the next while. So
I mentioned Bolduc and Matheson as two players you give obviously strong consideration to re-signing, and Bolduc is a no-brainer. Of course, the Montreal Canadiens are gonna re-sign him. There's no doubt about that. Players I didn't mention, there are two: Patrick Laine and Kirby Dach. Laine is a UFA next season. Kirby Dach is an RFA. Given the manner in which this roster is being constructed, speed first, it seems. There's a certain style of play that the Montreal Canadiens are evolving into. Is Patrick Laine, is he a player, if he continues to produce on the power play, Grant, do you re-sign Patrick Laine? That's another billion-dollar question for you. Enjoy that question.
Well, I mean,
$8.7 million this year. At
this point, it doesn't look likely, I don't think. But if he ends up getting hot on the power play again, you might consider it. It will depend how they do and how he does in the playoffs, if they make the playoffs, I believe. But right now, he's looking like somebody that doesn't fit on the team going forward. Playing fourth line at $8.5 million, I don't care how good you are on the power play. If you're not contributing significantly 5-on-5, I don't really care how many power play goals you score unless it's like an insane amount. And right now, Laine's one-timer isn't they're covering it pretty well, and he's not getting open, and he's not that effective on the power play right now. In fact, when it was the 5-on-3, he made that bonehead pass back into the middle that basically cost them. So, he keeps turning over the puck on the power play too. And I noticed that at the end of last year. Yes, it's nice that he scores power play goals, but if he's turning over the puck constantly on the power play too, you've got to also weigh that in to just how effective he is to a club's power play. Right now he's on the second power play. He's on the fourth line. He's making $8.5 million or thereabouts. Right now you'd say no. I think there's going to have to be some changes there in what happens for him to unless he takes a heck of a cut, and we'll see. I mean, if he's not effective the rest of the year, doesn't matter where he signs, it won't be for nearly as much as he made on his last contract.
What are your thoughts? It's early in the season, and for Kirby Dach, he needs to get up to game speed. He's effectively missed a couple of years. I mean, he missed last year, right? So it's not fair to conclude who he is as a player based upon first 3 games of the season, and you and I know that. Through your scout lens, what are you seeing with Kirby Dach that makes you feel optimistic, and on the flip side that maybe you're concerned about?
Well, I am concerned about his injury history. Will he? Will he? First and foremost, I'd like to see him stay healthy for an entire season. That would be nice, and that would help his value, I suppose. Also, he's never produced. He's never he never scored more than 71 points in junior. He's never scored 40 points in the NHL in a season. And for a former third overall pick, that's not good enough. He's got to he has to start to produce, and well over half a point per game. And if we don't see that, despite him being given power play opportunity after power play opportunity, he's, last year, that first half of the year, he struggled, but they never took him out of a top 2 center role or top 6 role. He was on the first 2 lines the whole time, despite the struggles. If it looks like they're going to play him, I mean, you can call it the second line or the third line with Bolduc and Gallagher. Obviously, ice time wise, right now, they're playing more than the Captain and Demidov line. So you have to consider it to be the second line. Well, if he's getting second line ice time again all year with good players and he doesn't score 50 points, you start to wonder if that's the guy that you traded for, that you hoped would turn out to be to start to fulfill that top 3 potential as a top 3 draft pick. So there's a lot of questions there that I think need to be answered, and those are the main points for me.
So going from questions to comments, we've got a lot of feedback here on the live show of HabsCast. This is an emergency HabsCast show. I'm Eric Macramalla. He's Grant McCagg, former Hab for the scout for the Montreal Canadiens. We've got a few here. We got one from Steven. Hutson's deal is front-loaded at 90% of a signing bonus. His salary's max is out at $2.2 million in his final 2 years. Few teams can arrange a contract like that. Thank you, Steven, for the comment. You're close. Absolutely. His contract is comprised of 78% in signing bonuses. And I don't know if the deal is necessarily front loaded. Yeah, he makes about $30 million in the first 3 years, 30 of the $70 million. But the CBA now provides you can only go up by so many percentage points. You have to, the years have to be closer. The years of a circumvented Ilya Kovalchuk deal of the last 3 years are worth $1.5 million to $500,000. Those years are done. Also remind you, the last year of his deal is $7.2 million. That's his highest base salary across the board. I don't necessarily understand that, but that's fine. But thank you for the comment, Stephen. You're effectively right in that the contract is heavily reliant on signing bonuses, and I mentioned that will save Lane Hutson about $7 million across the 8 years. So a significant savings for him. Another one here from Tim. Grant, I'll get your views. Matheson absolutely will take a hometown discount. Great value at $7 million. I tend to agree with Tim. I think Matheson at $7 million could be a great value. Let's not forget about Bolduc. If he comes in 5 years at $6 million per, which probably something that is going to happen in my estimation, I don't think he gets 8. Maybe it's $6 million over 5. That creates a bit of congestion on the salary cap. But Grant, in your views, is Matheson at $7 million? Is that a good deal?
It's funny how a lot of opinions have changed just in the past month with Matheson.
And he's still playing a lot, right? He's still playing a lot.
Yeah. But I mean, if you would poll Habs fans in the summer and said, will Montreal re-sign Matheson? I think 60% or more would have said, oh no, he's gone. He's going to be traded for a second line center. Well, get him a right-handed first pairing defenseman like he didn't have the last 3 years, where he played invariably with rookies. He had to play on the right side. He never played with a bona fide right shot first pairing defenseman till the start of this season, and lo and behold, he looks great, right? Playing with Dobson. So there's no way Montreal's in the playoff position at the end of February, and the trade deadline's coming along. Not even a 1% chance that the Canadiens are going to trade Matheson because he's a pending UFA. In part because I being a West Island boy, right? Be, being such a all I hear from, the inside information on Matheson is the character. He's just he loves it there. He's such a mentor. They love it. They love him. They want to. There's no way they're trading him if unless Montreal is out of the playoff race, and then okay, then it makes sense that they might trade Matheson because maybe they won't get him signed. But I think he'll take a hometown discount to a certain degree. I also think his style of play and his skating being his main asset. When you look at the Scott Niedermayers of the world, the Lidstroms, the guys that were mobile, really mobile defensemen, they were great right up till about the age of 37. And I think Matheson has only kept improving his game over the past 3 years since he was with the Canadiens. His prime is he's got another 5 years of really solid defense play, top four. You re-sign him 5 years if you can, and hopefully somewhere, if it's somewhere in the 7 million, I think that's a bargain. And I think that Canadians will explore that heavily.
There's a comment here from Robert. We still need to get tougher, and I assume he means tougher on D, but also tougher as a whole on the team. I agree in part with Robert that the D core, Matheson, Dobson, Hutson, Gooley, Jackeye, and Carrier, lacks beef outside of Jackeye and Gooley, and in the playoffs that might become an issue. Arbor Jackeye is an RFA next year. Based upon the construction of this D-core, Grant, I don't really see a choice other than to re-sign Jackeye. And I would add that, again, it's just this season, but Arbor seems to be playing with a little bit more confidence, seems to be making better decisions, and is more valuable as a whole as a defenseman. Through your scout lens, what do you see when you watch Arbor this season?
Yeah, he dedicated his off season to getting a little quicker, and it's obvious that he's keeping up with the pace pretty well right now. There is a dimension there that it's not noticeable on any stat sheet, right? But just having that player in your lineup is it's invaluable in some regards, especially when you've got a bunch of young talent, a Demidov, Kapanen, all these young players coming up, Hutson, you go on and on. Montreal's got the youngest team in the league, and I think it's really important that they have Jackeye there, just to, the policeman, like the old days, right? There's still a need to have a player in there that gives the other team second thought to doing anything silly, to any star or any young player. And Jackeye certainly is one of the toughest players in the league, I think, and he's got a reputation for that. He will, he will stick up for teammates in a drop of a glove, and I think that's a valuable piece. But also, I mean, I think he's competent enough to play a third pairing defense role. And that's a pretty valuable, a shutdown. He can play on the PK. He can be out there protecting leads. That's a valuable piece. So
Arbor is Jackeye's getting, he's visibly improved and will continue to improve before our eyes. And the Canadiens need a guy like him in the lineup, simply by virtue of the toughness that he adds. We got a couple more messages here. One from Gary Coulnoyer. I had to read it because his last name was Coulnoyer. Matheson is a real leader and a real pro. He's part of the solution for the Habs moving forward, in my opinion. Thank you, Gary. And then right after him, V.C. His comment is interesting, and I think that's an important point to discuss here. Engstrom and Reinbacher pushing for a spot may have more to do with Matheson staying than Matheson wanting to go. Who knows? See how the year plays out. But that's an interesting point, is that you have defensemen like Reinbacher and Engstrom looking for a spot in the Montreal Canadiens, right? Reinbacher, 6'4", right, or 6'3", right shot defenseman. If he can stay healthy, that appears to be a massive, massive if. But if he can stay healthy, then this is someone that you slot on the right side. And so you then ask yourself, okay, how much room do we have for, higher paying someone $7 million a year? I really like Matheson. I also really love Brendan Gallagher, and I really love Josh Anderson. I love what they offer. With Gallagher and Anderson, the issue is they maybe don't offer the type of outcome that is aligned with their AAV, that they're being paid. Gallagher $6.5 million, that's his AAV. Anderson 5.5. That's a lot to play for supporting cast members, and I don't know if you can do that, but I love those players. The Canadiens are better with Gallagher and Anderson. There's no doubt about that. Matheson, I think, is a level above those guys because he offers a lot. He still eats up a lot of minutes, just like he did last year. He's playing 22, 23 minutes a game, and he's doing a really good job this season. So Matheson, to me, it's a bit more complicated. Do you want to re-sign him? Of course you do. But Grant, is there room for him if a Reinbacher comes up? Your thoughts?
Well, Reinbacher will be on an ELC, right? Mm-hmm. So it's you offset Matheson re-signing at $7 million or whatever, with him maybe being paired with Reinbacher even, and you combine the two salaries. If it's $8 million for a really good defense pairing, is that's going to look like a bargain in a couple of years. I think the average salary by next year will be over $4 million per player, right? They're already, it's
and you also, let me ask you, Grant, sorry to interrupt you, you also have Matheson on the left side. Reinbacher, yes, I presume, would play on the right side. Yeah. So does that affect things for Matheson?
Yes. Like Engstrom, right? If they re-sign Matheson, as much as I like Engstrom, I just don't see a spot for him there. There's no spot on the left side. Like, he's not going to be ahead of Matheson. He's not going to be ahead of Gooley. And then you got Arbor in the third spot, right? And others. So I mean, I just don't know that Adam Engstrom, as much as I like him, has a spot if Matheson re-signs with the club. I don't know. Matheson's a better version of Engstrom. He's proven. And also, when you bring up Gallagher and Anderson, Gallagher in particular, he's older than Matheson, but also forward. And typically, by the age of 33, there is a definitive decline in a player. He's not as effective as he was at 28 or whatever. Not always the case with defensemen. I think their primes are extended, as I mentioned earlier. And Matheson, I believe, has at least 5 more really good years left, mm-hmm, where he is he's in his prime still. That's not going to be.
I do want to get
Gallagher.
Grant, I do want to get to the Montreal Canadiens power play, because I do want your views on that, because I've been watching these power plays and I want your views. But I want to ask you about Noah Dobson. When I watch Noah Dobson play, there are times I sit there and I actually laugh. I'm like, how was this guy available? 6'4", right shot D, smart, high IQ, anticipates well, picks his spots. I get the B-reel's got turnovers, but everyone's B-reel's got turnovers. Please give me a break. This is the NHL. He does so many things well. Do you ever sit back and just kind of laugh? Like, how did the Canadiens get this lucky?
You know what? I was talking about left defenseman and I didn't even mention Hutson. So that's,
there you go.
I mean, hello, So where's the spot for Engstrom, right? It's just not there. But yes, Dobson on the right side, right defense too, right? It's mm-hmm, just, it was such a need. And how do you, it was a perfect storm, I think, with Matthew Schaefer, with the Islanders getting the first overall pick, Matthew Schaefer going to be their guy, and they thought, okay, well, we can replace Dobson with Matthew Schaefer, and they will, Matthew Schaefer's going to be a fantastic defenseman. He's already scored a goal. So it just,
but like you say, he's on an entry level deal. There's no pressure to get rid of him.
No, right. And for whatever reason, Patty Waugh and Dobson, I think, had a bit of a falling out there last year. And I don't know all the details on it, but he's the coach. Coach's got to, I think Patty had some say in whether they were going to deal him or not. And well, Dobson wanted out, right?
He did, but I wonder, Patrick Waugh, after Schaefer's last game, right? I think he got his first goal, whatever it was. Patrick Waugh said he was our best player on the ice. Was that like a backhanded shot at Dobson, do you think?
Maybe. I know Islanders fans have been trolling and, look, Dobson this, Dobson that. Well, watch our games and you'll appreciate that there's nothing to troll there. Dobson, he may have struggled a bit in the preseason, but preseason's preseason. It's to prep. Since the drop
doesn't matter.
Drop of the puck. Since the drop of the puck in the regular season, he's looked fantastic. And I said, well, give him some time to adjust to the new defensive system and everything. Maybe it wasn't a hybrid system he's adjusted. He adjusted from game one of the regular season, and he looks great. And the Canadiens were fortunate again. Good timing, but smart managerial decisions being made again and again.
You've said it before. It's exhibition season. Every time I think about the exhibition season, I think of Letterman years ago when the owner of the Steelers, Dan Rooney, died. And Letterman, he died during the exhibition season in the NFL. And he said, does it count? And Letterman got a whole bunch of flack for that. But it's been like 30 years. I don't know how long it's been. I guess the joke was made. When did Dan Rooney die? It must have been 2016 or 17, around that time. Anyway, it's been a long time. I know. I thought it was just I always think about that. Okay. While I have you, Grant, and I do want to talk about the Habs power play here, because the first power play unit is Slavkovsky, Suzuki, Buttigieg, Hutson, and Caulfield. Specifically, you've got Nick Suzuki now on the left flank. Nick Suzuki, to me, is a player who maybe doesn't fit the profile of someone on the PP1 who's taken a shot on net. Doesn't have a quick Stamkos, Laine type of shot. He's very deliberate in how he shoots. He's more of an assassin, but you have time. You have time to challenge his shot. So when the Canadiens basically rolled out that PP1 for most of the game against the Blackhawks, I wasn't really surprised that they weren't scoring. Like 10 power plays, that's a lot of, you got to score more than, was it one goal out of whatever it was in the power play? That was embarrassing. And that's not a good sign. I said my views after the first season is PP2 was PP1 with Laine and Demidov, because that's what a modern day power play looks like. It doesn't, with all due respect, look like Nick Suzuki on the left flank. I'm sorry, it doesn't. But your thoughts on the Canadiens power play and where Nick Suzuki's playing and that PP1 as a whole?
Well, PP1 has scored 3 goals, and PP2, which had more than 5 minutes of ice time in the last game, hasn't scored. I'm actually more concerned about the PP2 at this point than I am about the PP1. Bolduc in the bumper has a great shot.
Totally.
Slav, he prefers to make that quick.
Grant, I just stop you here. I've done a few podcasts with you. Every time you're like, this player, your head bobs a bit. So our listeners should know when your head's bobbing, that's your answer.
Yeah, well, he does have a good one-timer, but he prefers that quick pass, which it can be quite effective, but he does have a good one-timer on the right side if he does choose to use it. And then Caulfield with the one-timer on the left. And then Suzuki kind of all the way around. And his best shot is kind of on the right side between the slot and the boards. Yeah. He scored a lot of his goals just coming in with the puck and then unleashing that wrist shot, right?
Yeah, 100% on the right side. Yeah.
That's his spot. And Hutson, well, he's got an improved shot, and I hope he gets to use it more often. I think that's going to work, and it's going to take a little time. They've got a new piece in there with Bolduc, and we haven't seen him score from that bumper yet, but he will. And when they do get it, I mean, he was working with Robert Thomas, one of the best passers in the league, and they, once they got accustomed to playing with each other, you saw Thomas feeding Bolduc in the bumper and him scoring. So far this year, he's kind of healed it a couple times when he got it in the bumper, but I think that will change. Mm-hmm. And that I have confidence that this 5-man unit will work. And I understand Slav being on it because, yeah, he's over on the right, but he also goes to front of net. He's the best guy to screen. He's effective that way. He will help the first power play in that regard, where he gets he's hard to move in front of the net. But it's the second unit with Dach that is bothering me right now more than anything. I think Kapanen should be the guy in there and not Dach centering the second unit, because they haven't, with Laine, Dobson, and Demidov on it. They should have scored a goal by now, especially having 11 power plays in 25 minutes. And they trotted out Dach for every one of them. And I know I got into a debate with Liam about it, but he said, well, no, you never change it. You don't ever. You go with the 10 guys. And I respect his opinion. He coached a lot of years. But when that was unusual circumstances, 11 power plays in 25 minutes, Kapanen had scored goals in his first 2 games of the season, and he got cold sitting on the bench and never, he played about 2 minutes in a 25-minute span. He'd made the nicest pass on his first shift of the game, and looked great, and then he has to go cold on the bench because, as usual, they got to try to get Dach going, right? The guy that's never scored 80 points in junior, never scored 40 points in the NHL, but he was a top 3 pick, so he's got to. I am running out of patience with Kirby Dach being forced into being an offensive player when still
okay.
Not
well, Grant, let me ask you this: as far as the PP1 goes, I'm going to give you a scenario for PP1. You tell me if I'm crazy. Okay, and I understand when line changes, it gets a bit complicated. Lane Hutson, Suzuki, both at the point. Demidov, Bolduc, and Laine.
Sorry?
So I've got Lane Hutson. This is my PP1. Hutson, ready? Hutson. So tell me if I'm crazy. And I assume I am, because, I am. Lane Hutson, Suzuki, Demidov, Bolduc, and Laine.
Yeah. I get what you're saying, but I don't know. Laine hasn't looked good on the power play for about his last 25 games. His one-timer is not working. He was on the first power play at the end of last year, and it wasn't working. I prefer Caulfield right now because at least he'll move around and make some plays and do some things.
Why isn't Laine's one-timer? It was highly effective. So they're obviously focusing on him. If you got Demidov on the right flank, then would that open up Laine a little bit more, because now you have 2 threats?
Well, I still think you need a net front presence. And who's the net front presence? Is Hutson the net front presence? Or
Bolduc would be in your bumper.
Bolduc plays a bumper.
Yeah, let's put him in the.
That's not really the. That's
no,
not
but if you got Demidov, Bolduc, and Laine down low, does that not provide a couple of threats here to get quality shots on net?
Yeah,
you can't just have Laine.
Right. Well, I think Caulfield, Slav, and Bolduc give you 3 shooting threats with as well.
I'll bounce my head too on that one. Yeah.
No, I mean, Demidov hasn't demonstrated that he's a sniper at the NHL level yet. It's not like his shot has been lethal, or has he scored a sniper type goal? It's been dekes and nice plays in close, but he's not showing that. He hasn't showed anything yet that tells me, well, he's got to be the shooting option on the right hand side. He's a passing option. He's a good passing option, but Slav is an underrated passer. He's a very good playmaker. Makes a lot of, and he protects the puck. It's impossible to get the puck off him almost when he's protecting it. And also, he can go to the front of the net. Like, I like how they kind of moving him around and doing different things on the first power play. Demidov with time, as he gets adjusted to it, as Marty keeps, coaching him and teaching him.
As the game slows down for him.
That's right. Well, then, yes, he'll eventually be on the first power play. But like I say, he's on the 5 minutes the other night, and they were ineffective. So,
my PP1,
why would you promote two guys? Why would you promote two guys from the second power play up to the first when they haven't scored yet and been ineffective?
I love quick twitch, and I love traditional threats on the power play. And I guess I look at the PP1, and to me, it doesn't look traditional insofar as what success looks like and what we saw last year. I get what Marty St. Louis is doing because Caulfield's down low as well, creating an option down there. I get it. I'm just when you've got 10 power plays and they're on for most of them, and you don't really have a lot of quality scoring chances, let alone goals, Grant, that's got to be a small. I know it's early, but a small cause for concern.
They scored twice, and the second unit didn't score at all. So you want to promote two guys from the second unit to the first unit when they haven't scored a goal yet?
Yes.
If they start to produce, then yeah, I'll say, okay, promote them to the first unit. But that's opposite world there, bizarro, whatever. Oh, well, let's give guys that haven't scored a goal onto the first power play that scored 3 goals. So I don't agree with that at this point.
We got a message in from Danko. Why can't PP2 be Laine, Dach, Bolduc, Matheson, Dobson? So 2D at the point. What's wrong with trying 2D? Oh, there we go. Yeah. What's wrong with trying 2D? So Grant, through your scouting lens, through your scouting lens, why have teams migrated to 1D?
And James Teal just mentioned, who's playing more, Grant, the first unit? Yes, but last game, Dach had more than 5 minutes power play. They all did. All those guys on the second power play unit. They've had a lot of time on the power play, and they haven't scored a goal yet. That's my point. Now,
I think we all get your point. We don't have to agree with it, but we all get your point.
Just so Jason Teal saying, who gets more power play time. Well, both of them have gotten. When a unit gets more than 5 minutes of power play time in a game, they got plenty of time, and they did not score a goal. I'm more concerned about. Because I see the potential in that second unit. And it's one of the reasons why Marty did it this way, to have 2 supposedly lethal power play units, right? And try to play them like, I know a lot of times last year, Suzuki played the whole power play. Mm-hmm. They had the first unit out for a minute and a half a lot of times. They're not doing that this year because they have a good second unit. But yeah, and I've been, as far as having 2 defensemen, I know the NHL standard seems to be, every team does the same thing. It's a copycat league, and the right now one of the things is you got to have a forward on the power play. But how many teams have 3 60-point defensemen on it? None, one. Like they're. It's special circumstances again. When you have unique circumstances, I think you've got to utilize them. I would not be averse to seeing Dobson and Hutson together on the power play.
Grant, is the issue though that the old days, that's 15 years ago, on the power play, your D could get shots through the net, but now a lot of shots are being blocked. Players are more comfortable doing it, especially with the equipment they have. Is that why now primarily your goals are scored bumper, right flank, left flank, rather than the point? That the days of Shea Weber and Al Iafrate appear to be over, and that's why you're not playing the 2D?
Yeah. Yes. But also, I think the first power play, who you taking off, there's so many good forward options that I get it that they have 4 forwards out there, and you're not going to take Bolduc off and replace him with Dobson. I don't think. on the first power play to have two defensemen out there. It's on the second power play that, when you've got Gallagher out there, or who's not really a playmaker per se, Matheson could be on the second unit sometimes, I think, and have Dobson and Matheson together out there. Even though Matheson was frustrating at times, certainly when he was on the first power play unit. But when you have him as the third point option as opposed to the first on the first power play, I think it's better suited for him than when they were asking him to quarterback the first power play. Having him as a second option on the point on the second power play, I wouldn't mind seeing that. But I understand why the first unit doesn't go with two defensemen, given how much firepower there is with the forward options.
He is Grant McCagg. I'm Eric Macramalla. This is HabsCast. All things Montreal Canadiens. We're way over time here. So I do want to ask just two more questions. Well, I know on a really positive note, the question number 2. The last question about the Habs power play. I want to get your view as someone who sees the game differently than most of us do, as a former scout for the Montreal Canadiens and a scout who is someone who is still a scout today and does phenomenal work. I was at baseball practice. I got fall ball with my prospect kids. And one of the guys that I coach with said, I love Grant. I buy his prospect. What's the name of it? Like the prospect book that you do?
Recruits the draft guide.
Yeah, the draft guide that you do. He absolutely loves you and loves your perspective. So my question as just a regular hockey fan on that power play, when I see Suzuki on the left flank, I look at him as an elite playmaker, the king of the saucer passes, I always call him, right?
Yeah.
Anytime the kids feed me a saucer pass in the driveway, we stop and go Suzuki. Is he someone on the power play that the team would benefit more having on the right flank than on the left flank, given that he is, I believe he's a left shot. No, he's a right shot, excuse me. Yeah. Would that make a difference, or it doesn't make a difference in your estimation?
Well, I prefer him being all over the place and not, I think what has hurt the Canadiens power play in the past is it being too static and everybody kind of being in, well, you got to be here, you have to be here. And what I
there
was
wasn't enough
for,
movement, right? There wasn't enough movement.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want him in any, I don't want him right flank. I don't want him left flank. I want him all flanks. I want
we only have 2 flanks. But
yeah, that's right. I want him down low flank, left flank, right flank, middle flank.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Probably not, right?
It makes you want Suzuki is so talented and so smart. You can put him anywhere you're suggesting, and he'll enjoy success. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you can make up flank. Can make up words. Like,
why not?
That's how good he is. No,
my legal career is based upon fiction.
Yeah, I like Suzuki moving all over the place, and I like Slav moving. Sometimes being on the on the right flank, sometimes being in front of the net, sometimes being behind the net. I think those two guys should be moving around. At Hutson, while he's jitterbug, he's all over the place too. I like a lot of movement on your power play.
That's good.
And I think that, I don't know that I haven't noticed that is he like predominantly on the flank, or has he been moving around? I honestly can't say I've been focusing on where Suzuki's been.
Mainly on the flank, but because I'm irrational, Grant, I get upset over things for no apparent reason, and it's not justified. I don't know what the hell I'm doing anyway. But yeah, he seems to be this season, Sellenway has mixed it up. But you're right. I mean, you're right. Last year, the issue of the power play in the first half was just not enough movement. Then they figured that out. Power play got good. You know what's funny is, I was crunching the numbers a couple years ago for Offside, my radio show on TSN, and Montreal Canadiens haven't finished in top 10 in goals for as a team. They've only finished top 10 twice, and one was the lockout shortened season, and that was from 2000 to 2024. Hey, this season they're second in the league with 10 goals in 3 games. That's something, right? It's exciting. And I guess that ties into what I want to ask you to cap off this amazingly fun conversation. I feel like we bumped into each other at Loblaws or Steinberg's or wherever it is and talking Habs. And I love Steinberg's. It was fantastic. I grew up in Côte-Saint-Luc and we used to always go to Steinberg's. But this has been so much fun. I could do this all day, every day, which is why we're over an hour. I watched the Montreal Canadiens play against the Leafs, the game I thought they should have won, the Red Wings and the Blackhawks. And to me, it was less about the score and more what I was witnessing as a fan of the Montreal Canadiens. This is a good team. This team is different than last year. It's faster, more aggressive on the forecheck. Other teams have a smaller margin for error. The Canadiens are all over opposing teams. Grant, I will say this unequivocally. I absolutely love this version of the Canadiens. And on top of that, they're the second youngest team in the league. Or no, the youngest team in the league, is it?
Yeah.
This is, as a Habs fan, I am incredibly excited. Through your scouting lens, are you excited about this team? Do you like what you're seeing now?
Well, I am naturally optimistic, Eric, so it's hard not to be with this team.
You say so in such a muted tone. I'm optimistic.
Hey, yeah, I think they're one of the 5 most skilled teams in the league. You could make that argument right now.
Okay. And
they're also the youngest. So I think that they're making the playoffs, and I think they're going to make noise this year.
Well, you said in our first podcast, you think this is a 100-point team.
Yeah.
I didn't believe you. I disagree. I remember I hung up. I should have challenged you. Now I watched these first 3 games. I'm like, you know what? Grant I'm thinking 99 points because I want to be a contrarian, but I think I know what you meant by a 100-point team. That is that this is a good hockey team now. Yeah. That's what you meant, right? I
did, yeah. I think they're top 5 in the East now. That they will be. There's just too much talent there. And when a team gains confidence, it's such a key when you're a confident group. I know I played a lot of hockey, and when you felt confident that you were going to win, you stood a hell of a lot better chance of winning than when you didn't. And this group believes in itself, and I think that they're one of the top teams in the East and in the NHL the next decade, starting now.
It's exciting. This is an exciting time to be a Habs fan, because what I love is it's not a Bergevin team that might be okay for one season. This is a team that had a stated focus on the rebuild. They accomplished that focus. Very hard to rebuild a team with success in the current CBA environment. #Sabres, #Red Wings, right? It's very hard to do. And based on what I'm seeing and what you're seeing is the Canadiens have succeeded. And they're going to be good not for a year, but they're going to get better and better and be good for 10 years. As a Habs fan, I could not be happier. And one of the reasons is my kids are 11 and 9, and they are distracted by YouTube. And it is tough to keep them focused. They love the Canadiens. They have Canadiens pajamas, shirts, hoodies, everything. But if they're not winning on a semi-regular basis, it makes them hard to keep them engaged. And again, they're big hockey fans. Like, they do a hockey pool, so they know everyone in the league. But even that aside, Grant, I'm so excited as a Habs fan. So excited. This conversation has been so exciting. I have loved this. Thank you for taking the time on an emergency basis to share the Lane Hutson deal. Grant, if you missed the first part, Grant and I broke down the Lane Hutson deal in a lot of detail. I'll have something up at Forbes soon, breaking down the Lane Hutson, like your key takeaways. This has been so much fun, Grant.
Well, I couldn't think of a better person to have on. I knew that you would break it down way better than I ever could, and that you do the research, and you know what you're talking about when it comes to contracts. I'm still that's not my forte. I'm a scout. I'm not a contract lawyer. So thank you so much for coming out. I know that the Hutsons tonight for Thanksgiving dinner are having filet mignon.
Yeah, but time. You know what? They may be having filet mignon, but the Hughes brothers, their deal's like $30 million for this year. I tweeted out, probably out on a yacht. Probably they can't decide whose yacht are we going to have Thanksgiving dinner on. So I'd rather be a Hughes than a Hutson. Although Cole Hutson probably will make some money in a few years as well, coming off his entry-level deal, I would expect. Cole Hutson, the World Juniors, was a ton of fun to watch live. All right, Grant, that is it. He's Grant McCagg, former scout for the Canadiens and still a scout. I'm Eric Macramalla, and this has been HabsCast, a podcast all things Montreal Canadiens. Chat soon.